following is a production of Cary TV, the Town of Cary's government access channel.
St. Patrick's. Call to order the September 11th meeting of the Cary Town Council. And at this time, I'll recognize Councilmember Robinson for our ceremonial opening. Ms. Robinson.
All right, thank you so much. As we gather here today on September 11th, let us not forget the terrible events that occurred 13 years ago. If you all would join me in a moment of silence as we reflect on the loss of life that experienced that day, as well as the great courage that was demonstrated. Please join me. Amen. Okay, please join me in pledging allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're at the portion of our meeting where we adopt the agenda. I would entertain a motion to do so. Hey, how are you? Don't be shy.
So moved.
There's
Second.
a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I'd like to point out that we're one council member short this evening. Ms. Adcock is not here this evening because she's out of town taking care of an ill family member, and we wish her and her family member well. We're now at Public Speaks Out portion of our meeting. We've included instructions for speaking at this forum on the printed agenda. If you'd like to speak at Public Speaks Out, I would invite you to take a seat in the rows to my right that are shown as reserved and follow the instructions on the agenda. Public Speaks Out speakers have up to 3 minutes for their comments, and they may speak on any topic as long as it's not a public hearing. I will enforce the 3-minute time limit to be fair to all of our speakers. There's a timer located at the speaker's podium. When the green light turns yellow, that means you have 30 seconds remaining. And when your time expires, the yellow light will turn into a flashing red light. And at that time, I'm not trying to be rude, but trying to be fair. I will interrupt you and ask you to immediately conclude your comments. And I thank all of our speakers in advance for adhering to our 3-minute time limit. We also ask that groups allow a spokesperson to speak on their behalf to reduce repetitive comments. And I thank everyone in our audience for respecting that this is a business meeting. I would ask that you do not applaud, make remarks from your seat, or anything else that might distract from this meeting. So now is the time for Public Speaks Out. for anyone who would like to speak on a topic that is not a public hearing, and I would invite the first speaker to the podium at this time.
Hi, I'm Will Darden from Weatherstone. I spoke at the last meeting, and I'm just coming to touch base after that. As a refresher, we had started a petition to remove double yellow line and parking lines on Castalia in Weatherstone. For the first 13 years in the neighborhood, there were no lines. There were no perceived dangers to pedestrians. There was parking for all. Since the addition of the yellow line, we have had a dangerous situation with multiple close calls between pedestrians and moving vehicles. I know that several of you have personally inspected the site, and I commend you for that. If you have not, my suggestion would be, if you were to inspect it, go stand as a pedestrian would behind a mailbox, because that's safer. I have done that. Some of the residents have done that to check it out. It is gives you a much higher feeling of danger when you're actually there versus a driver. As you remember, we distributed a non-Cary petition. Apologies for that. We're new to this process. So since we're still fairly new, what we tried to do is check every step with Julie Green, and we thank her for that guidance. So we've done our absolute best to meet every letter. For this round, we did do a walk-around effort to get out the vote, and thanks to the hard work of our volunteers, we got a very good turnout. We had 82% in favor, we had 8% opposed, and we had 9% without a response. So that's to reiterate the previous statement from last meeting. We do have strong consensus in the neighborhood for the petition, and with that, I'd like to ask you guys direct help to approve the petition tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Sandra Harris.
Can I get you to move to the left?
Yes.
So we can pick you up on TV if anybody.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to thank you for allowing us the opportunity to achieve the petition requirements. I've been totally overwhelmed and humbled by the neighborhood support. It has opened the door to work toward improvement with traffic speed on Castalia, and Julie Green has already committed to gathering data for those conversations. I look forward to our neighbors discussing with her alternatives for safety of all residents and community members who use the collector street we live on. I deeply believe in giving back and making our surroundings a better place to live. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker for Public Speaks Out.
My name is Terry Rackway. I'm a transportation engineer in Raleigh. And I trust that you're all familiar with the Durham Orange Light Rail project and how it eventually will connect to Cary. Well, there exists an alternative light rail plan which would change approximately 1/3 of the track alignment. All the major stations in Durham and Chapel Hill would remain. What's different is that the middle portion of the track alignment would shift towards the west side of RTP, traveling along the I-40 and CSX railroad corridor. And this change would bring significant benefits to the Triangle region. So consider how transit riders would travel from Cary to Chapel Hill on the current rail plans. How many of you would take the train if it took 68 minutes on a very circuitous route of 50.5 miles, first up to Durham to get to Chapel Hill? Riding the $1.7 billion light rail project would not be reasonable, so driving or taking a bus would make the most sense. So in contrast with the alternative light rail plan, passengers could zip between downtown Cary and Chapel Hill in 36 minutes instead of 68, on a direct route of 21 miles instead of 50.5 miles. The alternative plan has a central rail station near RTP with the light rail heading directly to Durham, Chapel Hill, and eventually towards Cary and Raleigh. The alternative rail plan costs $400 million less. It serves a greater area of minority populations and low-income households, provides more areas for affordable housing, TOD, It increases safety because it avoids the construction of 27 additional railroad grade crossings, and this is a big safety issue. It provides faster travel between Durham and Chapel Hill, about 5 minutes. It avoids major environmental impacts and eliminates the construction of 1.5 miles of bridges. And I believe it would have higher ridership because it serves future developments on the west side of RTP and high growth and population and employment areas as shown on Durham planning maps. Triangle Transit is currently going through the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, in which they are required to study reasonable alternatives. And TTA officials said that they will not study this alternative plan because it would set the project back for a long time. I believe the benefits of this plan are too significant to ignore, and that there is time to include it in the NEPA study because federal and state funding may be a long way off. So please consider a town council resolution for Triangle Transit to consider a study of this alternative in the NEPA report, or to provide reasons why they're not. And I have at least 3 handouts that would make it a little clearer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
I'm a little shorter. Good evening, I'm John Yoakum, and I've lived in Kildare Farms for over 26 years, and I'm here to address the proposed enhancements of the intersection of Cary Parkway and Kildare Farm Road. First, I want to thank the council for requesting the further study when this proposal was considered in March. And I want to compliment the staff on their efforts to look for and identify multiple superior alternatives. In your package tonight, there are actually 2 proposals that both deliver better performance than the March plan. Option 14 focuses on right turn lanes and only expands the intersection from 5 to 6 lanes, leaving Cary Parkway's landscaped medians their current width with all their trees intact. Option 11, recommended by staff, creates a 7-lane intersection by adding dual left turn lanes as originally proposed. However, a new approach carefully places the lanes to enable a miniature median that can still accommodate some small landscaping in Cary Parkway. Investing in 7 lanes of asphalt only gains an additional 9-second reduction in the evening commuter delays over the less drastic option 14, which could be implemented and easily expanded to option 11 at any point in the future as needed. Last March, I stood before you and I asserted this intersection deserves skilled surgery. If the council chooses to approve either option tonight, to assure the avoidance of any hideous permanent scars, I respectfully request an approval include stipulations from the council that the project achieve all the tree replacement and landscaping now illustrated in the plans, including the trees to be planted on the Shannon Oaks corner where the historic large oak was previously removed. Please assure that all trees are highly desirable species and as large as practical when planted, and please include some evergreen landscaping so this much more open intersection will not be barren for several months each year. Given the historic nature of this intersection, the heart of the first planned unit development in North Carolina, and a notable dairy farm that served Cary from the 1900s, I would request the council consider specifying the use of ornamental traffic and street lights at this corner, coordinated with the new downtown fixtures, to celebrate the historic importance of this important intersection in Cary and further distinguish it as it loses some of its natural wooded characters of the neighborhood. Thank you for your willingness to ensure both the neighborhood and commuters are well served.
Thank you, Mr. Yoakum. Next speaker, please.
Is this where I stand?
Yes.
Good evening. My name's Tom Alfieri, and I'm a resident of the Woods of Kildare. Regarding the intersection that John just spoke of, I travel through that intersection several times a day, at least 4 times a day, sometimes more on weekends. And I have to say, I've never experienced the kind of delays that this plan seems to be addressing. Perhaps it's the time of day that I travel through it. Perhaps I have a high tolerance for a little bit of traffic, but I've never thought of this intersection as one that I need to avoid because of the traffic. No doubt that traffic has increased over the years because of the welcome revitalization to the Trader Joe's shopping center. So perhaps some improvement, and I agree that perhaps some improvement to traffic flow is warranted. But turning Cary Parkway into 7 lanes in each direction seems a bit disproportionate to the problem. I understand, too, that the plan contemplates future increase in traffic in this intersection, and it's unclear to me exactly where all this increased traffic is coming from, given that all of the surrounding areas of this intersection are long ago developed shopping plazas, subdivisions, and office buildings. My fear is that over-increasing the capacity of this intersection will actually be the cause of more traffic through it rather than the solution for it. I'm also the president of the Kildare Farms One Homeowners Association, and in that capacity I would like to ask that whatever plan is adopted, that serious consideration be given to restoring the landscaping to a mature state consistent to the way it is now. One of the things that makes Kildare Farms unique is our respect for and our preservation of our trees. This intersection lies in the heart of our community and is one of the most attractive intersections in Cary today because of those trees. It would be a shame to see it turned into a barren concrete expanse like the one at Maynard and Kildare Farms Road, which I've often heard described as one of the ugliest intersections in Cary. So in closing, I respectfully ask that the council to consider 2 things. One is perhaps a less extreme and less destructive option to the one being presented tonight, but whatever plan is adopted, that it contains requirements, not just suggestions, that the landscaping after the project will, within a reasonable amount of time, have the same character and class that it does today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening. I'm Wanda Nicholson. I actually did not know the other 2 guys were going to speak, and it's really interesting this topic has brought out this much interest. I live at Hanover Place, which many of you know is directly behind the Trader Joe's shopping center. I also serve on the Kildare Farms 2 board of directors and have been president and treasurer of our homeowners association in Hanover. It's really a subject close to home because I'm also a business owner. I actually have space over at the Kildare office executive suite, so I walk. I'm trying to be that pedestrian-friendly resident of the town. Hanover Place also has a high proportion of senior citizens. I like to make the joke, I'm one of the younger ones, so that ought to be a clue. But we try to walk, we try to access the shopping center. We have trails that are part of Kildare Farms, and those of us in that community have a difficult time crossing the street safely. Those from Farmington Woods, we have an elementary school, so it really represents the diversity of population there. We do have a crosswalk, which, as many of you probably have experienced on your own, whenever you go somewhere, people tend to ignore that. I've said they don't even stop, much less slow down. So we have some major concerns. Now, in tandem with that, we're looking at the proposal you have for tonight with this issue. I don't see anywhere about traffic calming. And that's the perspective I'm coming from. We have, over the past year, worked with Julie Green with the town of Cary, appreciate her efforts, and Mr. Jensen. And we had, with much difficulty, finally secured the funds. We were told we had to put 25% towards traffic calming. A plan had been developed. We'd finally gotten the funds commitment. We were ready to move forward. And then we find out that more traffic is basically going to end up on High Meadow than is already happening. If you look over some of the historical information that's available, they've done traffic studies. In that little stretch of road, we've had people going over 60 miles an hour. So that just gives you a clue right there. Now, this proposal that's come forward talks about the yellow bollards or whatever, the track to prevent the turning into Trader Joe's. The problem with that is it's going to be aesthetically very unattractive. It's going to drive more traffic right there. We can foresee it turning right into our development our little neighborhood, which doesn't have an out on the other end. We only have that entrance. I can tell you there are times of day we can barely get in and out, even making a right turn. Unfortunately, the folks who back up to High Meadow are then going to be impacted even more with the commercial traffic, which will go to the second entrance there. And I realize time is not going to preclude a lot of in-depth discussion of this tonight, but I do hope before you take action that you will go back and study this plan some more. As I said, we have a high group of senior citizens. We feel like we should be able to safely access the services. That's one of the reasons my husband and I chose to move to Cary, was the care that the town takes, the infrastructure. You know, in a related issue, I do take a lot of interest in the downtown development, but I think you need to take care of the infrastructure we have here first. So again, please don't take any action without looking at this further. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Good evening, and to keep the train rolling on the same subject, my name is Jay Canick with Regency Centers, and we're the owner and operators of the Shops of Kildare, the Trader Joe's shopping center there. And wanted to come here to say a few things real quick. That we attended some of the work sessions about this project, and then we happened to find out that the restricting or changing of the access was being considered by happenstance, and we're concerned about that. The other thing I want to talk about is that changing or altering that access will negatively impact our ability to lease and occupy that shopping center. And we've heard some people talk about it's a good shopping center. We've put a lot of capital into it. And we take a great deal of pride in ownership and operating it. And would like the council to consider that when altering access to any shopping center. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Do we have anyone else for Public Speaks Out?
Good evening. I'm the pastor at St. Michael's in Cary. I'm also a resident on Castelia Drive, 1610 to be exact. And I'm just concerned about the petition.
Father, I hate to interrupt you, but
yes.
Could you give us your name for those who don't know who you are?
Reverend Douglas P. Reed.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm concerned about the petition to the effect that it would affect the parking spaces on Castelia Drive. That's my only concern. The thing is that we do use that almost every day during school to drop the children off, for the parents to pick the children up, and on weekends as well. And so if the changing of the yellow lines is going to affect also the parking spaces there, I'm also concerned about the fact of what is going to take its place. If the yellow lines are not being effective in slowing traffic down, then before a decision is made, about changing the whole structure over there, what is going to take its place? And the other concern that I have is, as a resident at Castelia, I have not been seeing either petition personally, have not been approached to sign the petition personally either, which makes me wonder why not. And then I also wonder how the petition was presented the second time around, whether or not they also used both petitions or not to have people, sign for the one that is from the town of Cary or not. I don't know. I have no knowledge about it, and so therefore that's just a concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Anyone else for Public Speaks Out? Seeing no one, we'll close Public Speaks Out, and we'll move to the consent agenda portion of our meeting. That's item 4 for those following along on their agenda. For the benefit of the people watching on TV, we're going to take a moment to review our consent agenda items. Please keep in mind that one vote approves all of these items. On the consent agenda, we have minutes, Town Council recommendation for boards and commissions, and Economic Development Committee appointees. owner-initiated annexation petition for Betty Ann Trulove. Rezoning 14 REZ 10, Wheeler Woods subdivision and comprehensive plan consistency statement. Comprehensive plan amendment 14 CPA 04, Ridgefield Farms. Rezoning 14 REZ 14, 215 South Academy Street, and comprehensive plan consistency statement. The tax report. Resolution for application for state revolving loan for Cary Apex Water Treatment Plant expansion. Bid award for Franklin Heights Water and Sewer Extension Project. Would council members like any of these items pulled for discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We now move to the public hearings portion of our meeting. Same rules apply for public hearings as applied to public speaks out, with one exception. Speakers now have 5 minutes for their comments. We're at item 5.1, which is the rezoning 14 REZ 22 Weston PDD amendment. We're going to hear from our staff. We're going to allow the applicant to explain his request, and then we're going to conduct a public hearing. Council will not take action on this item tonight. Instead, we're going to refer to our Planning and Zoning Board for their review and recommendation. Ms. Grant.
Thank you. Good evening. For your consideration is a request to rezone approximately 11.35 acres located at the intersection of Evans Road and Weston Parkway. The subject property is highlighted here in yellow on the southern side of Weston Parkway and to the east of Evans Road. It is currently vacant, as shown in this aerial view. Cary's land use plan designation for the property is office, and the existing zoning is planned development district. It is in the Weston PDD, and it is also part of a mixed-use overlay district, which is the dark blue surrounding the area. This shows you the subject property circled in red in relationship to the overall Weston PDD. And zoomed in a little bit closer shows you the subject tract, which is currently office and institutional 14, and the red hash marks on top of it shows that this area is also part of a commercial overlay district. So the uses for this are currently office and institutional and some light commercial. The applicant has proposed a residential use for the property, and because this land is located within a mixed-use overlay district, in addition to the amendment to the PDD, they've also submitted a preliminary development plan. The overview of the preliminary development plan would be to replace the current allowed uses with attached residential to set a maximum of 325 units and a neighborhood amenity. There's a swimming pool shown on the plan, to establish a maximum building height of 70 feet, and they're seeking a parking ratio of 1 space per bedroom. This gives you an idea of the building layout and the parking and the buffers on the proposed plan. The exact details of the building are yet to be determined, but the general massing and size and location are all something that would be locked in if this preliminary development plan is approved. So you see the center building is circled by parking, and there's also a proposed parking deck as part of that middle building. The applicants proposed a average 50-foot streetscape with a minimum width of 35 feet along both Weston Parkway and Evans Road, and they've proposed a 30-foot landscape buffer along the southern property line. Property owners within 800 feet of the subject property were notified by mail. The property was posted and advertised. There were no protest petitions submitted. Staff did receive inquiries from some adjacent property owners. One citizen was concerned about traffic in the vicinity of the site and has been in communication with Julie Green. She was able to answer his questions. There have been concerns from some citizens about the pedestrian network in the overall Weston PDD, and one citizen who expressed concerns for commercial uses being within walking distance, cafes and restaurants. The site is impacted slightly on the southern side by a stream buffer shown here in blue. This shows the location of existing and proposed greenway and street side trails. In addition to this, there's also a private greenway trail that's part of the Weston PDD that goes along the southern portion of the property. And this shows you that the subject property fronts both Weston Parkway and Evans Road, which are both major thoroughfares. There was a traffic study conducted in conjunction with this rezoning request and several traffic mitigations which are listed in your staff report, which the applicant has volunteered as part of this request. There's a proposed transit route along Weston Parkway. The exact date of when this might be completed has not been determined. The applicant has expressed some interest in exploring the feasibility of putting a transit easement on the property, and that's something that will be discussed and introduced before this goes to the Planning and Zoning Board. At this time, I'd like to call upon the applicant to present their case, and then staff is available for your questions.
Thank you. Would the applicant please come forward?
Yes, sir. My name is Chuck Smith, Withers Ravenel, representing the applicant, Highwoods Properties. Over the past few years, whenever we've talked about apartment proposals, the first question that comes up historically is, do we have too many apartments in Cary? I'd make 2 points on that and then go to the specifics of this case. The planning department, I think, historically has kept up with this mix of single-family and multifamily units in Cary, and historically over the last 40 years, when our growth really began in town, this mix has been roughly 3 to 1, 75% single-family, 25% multifamily, and that number has not deviated annually more than 1 or 2% in any particular year. So a lot of the perception that we've got too many, I'm not sure if it's really based on fact other than perception. Secondly, you've been probably getting the same reading list that I've been getting in the Imagine Cary literature, and we are behind the curve significantly in providing housing to young professionals, housing to our aging population, and I think there's been a lot of conversation about trying to address those needs. This proposal will address, I think, that particular issue with our proposed housing type. But more specifically, I'd like to talk about is the apartment use appropriate and necessary in this specific location at Weston Parkway and Evans. So let's talk about what's good. Deborah's talked about this a bit in our in looking at what we've got going on in this mixed-use center. Within our mixed-use district, there is over 300,000 square feet of office that either exists or is under construction. And there's another 200,000 proposed that would be part of the MetLife expansion beyond what they're building now is reserved for them if they choose to take that. Directly adjacent to our mixed-use center is another 700,000 square feet of office that either exists or is under construction. And this, beyond just looking at the square footages of those sorts of things, I think you're aware that this is translated for the expansions and the new construction into 1,900 new jobs that will be coming to this area at our doorstep. When you apply your guidelines in your land use plan, your guidelines state that it's desirable in a mixed-use district to have one high-density residential unit per 1,000 square feet of non-residential space. When you apply those standards, and this is the term that the land use plan uses, talks about the ideal minimum number of units that would be applied here, would be over 1,000 multifamily units. Okay, that's a significant number, and I think Obviously, this is different from most of the activity or most of the mixed-use districts or most of the mixed-use centers that we are typically talking about when we're looking at this sort of use, because generally they're surrounded by residential uses or include more single-family residential uses within them. That's not true here. So I think with looking at your standards, it would support the proposal. I think also if you then look at it a second way with the 1,900 jobs created and tie that back to the point that we've had roughly a 3-to-1 mix of single-family, multifamily. If you apply that to the 1,900 jobs, then there would be about 475 multifamily units that would be supported just by the job breakdown between single-family and multifamily. So I think both of those speak to the need in this mixed-use district for this use. Secondly, or also related to that, within the district, this is the only location it can go. The other corners are committed to retail uses. The rest of the adjacent site to our east is committed to, again, to MetLife for any expansion they may do. To this point in the process, we've received no objections. Again, I've been before you a number of times dealing with a lot of objections, and certainly familiar with that. Not necessarily comfortable with it, and I'm very happy to say I have not had phone calls, I've not had emails complaining about this. But there have been some questions. Deborah pointed out a few of the issues. The why not retail? Why are we not providing retail here? We have tried, and for the last 15 years, you've seen the corners down there have been set up for retail uses. We've got a bank there and a hotel there to this point. Most recently had conversations with Starbucks, trying to attract them to the area. They want rooftops. They're waiting for rooftops to be there before they would locate. And I think that's why other uses or other retail uses are kind of waiting for the same thing. But that's a specific instance that I'm aware of. What about school overcrowding? That typically comes up with any residential proposal. We have, and consistent with the other projects that we've located in Weston, this is more of an urban style of apartment as opposed to a suburban style. And we've tried to build in conditions that guarantee that. I think the most significant one being that 2/3 of the units within the project are guaranteed to be 1 bedroom only. So you just can't get families in there, and particularly with the price point of those units. At the same time, we're providing a range of amenities that are geared more towards the single and young professional than they are to families. We've guaranteed that there will be no playground. There will be a gym quality fitness center. There will be a theater. There will be resident conference rooms, again, geared more towards the demographic that we're trying to hit. And so as I've tried to go back and look at the similar projects we've done and test whether it's actually working, and in looking at both Weston Lakeside and then more recently Bradford, Weston Lakeside has approximately 20 school-age kids that are in that project. Bradford has less than that right now, but again, they're just gearing up. And I think it would be fair to say with Bradford too, because of the townhomes that are located, there will be more school kids there, but that's because there are larger townhome units that are yet to be built. And then thirdly, there was a comment about, is there really a traffic problem generated with this? We're typically looking at undeveloped land that may be going to a lesser density. If this is not apartments, it's going to either be office or some sort of retail use or mixed use. It's going to generate more traffic than we are. And really, we've been trying, as we've talked about in these various proposals over the last few years, that we've been trying to help resolve our traffic issues in Weston that occur in more of a traditional office park by including more residential uses. And I think that's been, again, we are finding that to be working out in that regard. In a recent study, again, of Weston Lakeside residents, they're over 70% work in the Weston SAS area. And so that obviously results in fewer vehicle miles And no other residential use typically in these proposals can say that. I mean, so we're putting fewer cars on the road that are driving longer distances with this. So we feel good about the proposal in this location. I think I've taken an appropriate amount of time here, and I'll be available for questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Now's the time for the public hearing for rezoning 14 REZ 22, the Weston PDD amendment, and I would invite our first speaker forward at this time.
Hi, my name's Joel King. My concern about this rezoning request is the access to the greenway. My wife and I live within walking distance of this greenway, and we use the Weston Greenway on a daily basis. The aesthetics of putting a parking garage and 352 apartments that close to the greenway, I think, is going to have a very negative impact on the citizens' use of the greenway. If you look at the existing use of the property, if you look at John Deere as an example, their corporate headquarters is right next to this property, and that is a very low impact use of, or low impact to the greenway and the citizens using the greenway. We're also concerned about crime. I've talked to Cary police officers in the past, and they've indicated to me that in Cary, a large portion of the crime problem in Cary is apartment buildings, and we have concerns about apartment buildings that close to the greenway in a fairly otherwise isolated area. So my recommendation is that this request to rezone this property into the residential be denied. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Anyone else for this public hearing? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and open it up to council members for questions or comments. None? I have some.
No,
okay.
Well, I meant just comments. Well, actually, one question. The you want to go first?
No, go ahead.
The 2/3 one bedroom that was stated by the applicant, is that a zoning condition?
It is.
Thank you. I guess the one thing I'm struggling with is we have this discussion, I guess, every time that office property comes up for residential. And, you know, we all have our individual opinions and positions on that. You know, I've kind of viewed it as if I think the residential product is as good or better than the office, then I'm generally okay with it. But I'm sitting here weighing office land in pretty much Cary's premier office area for apartments, whether they be really nice apartments or not. It's just, I'm struggling with that. I can't say I like it, don't like it. I'm just, you know, I'd like to learn more about it as it goes through the process. I would agree with the applicant regarding the viability of the commercial, especially with Park West down the road and the, you know, rejuvenation of the shopping center and such up on Harrison with Bass Pro and everything. It's going to be years before commercial's viable here. So I think there are only two alternatives are residential product or an office product. I just don't know, or I just don't know that I'm comfortable yet with losing this office property for an apartment complex. So that's my 30,000-foot comments.
And I'm right where you are. And so one of the questions I have about is it a condition, or can they make a condition between apartments and condominiums? I didn't think they could. Okay, so he's speaking apartments, so I assume that's what it'll be. One of the things we had in our...
If I could interrupt, it could be condominiums.
Right.
Right, but ownership is not something that would be a zoning
I could
condition.
ask him, but I know he could say anything. It's not a condition, doesn't mean anything, so...
It could change, right.
Right.
Thank you.
One of the things in our economic development meeting yesterday that was said, it was very interesting, was within the next 15 years, the Charlotte and Raleigh areas will be the fastest growing areas for jobs in the country. Did I hear that right?
You heard that correct.
Yeah. And that's really scary, because when you do a inventory of available office space, you know, that gets scary. On the other hand, I'm right with, a best mix of use reduces travel, you know, and this is a good use normally. So I'm right where you are. I'm going to be struggling with this one as it goes through the process as well, because like he said, the Lakeside Apartments, assuming his data is correct, 70% of them work very close. That's a good mix of use in that area. So I'm going to be struggling with this one as we go forward. So.
Yeah, it's very difficult because we don't want to see our O&I zoned property disappear. On the flip side, we hear that the younger population that has these high-tech jobs want to have walkable communities. They want to be able to walk to work. And so Weston is looking to meet that need that they're hearing from their workers by putting in apartments right where the office is. So it is a tough one. It's a real challenge that we have trying to protect the O&I land and making that judgment call when it's appropriate to change it.
The good news is we have several weeks to think about it.
And get feedback.
That's right. Any other comments or questions? Okay, we're going to send this to the Planning and Zoning Board for their recommendation. Thank you, Ms. Granite. That takes us to discussion items. Our first discussion item is item 6.1, the Kildare Farm Road, Cary Parkway intersection analysis. Ms. Dwiggins will present this item, and council may take action. Ms. Dwiggins.
Good evening, council. Widening options to improve the Kildare Farm Road and Cary Parkway intersection were presented at the March 13th Town Council meeting and tabled to provide additional information and other alternatives based on council and community concerns. Since the last Town Council meeting, staff attempted to address all council and public concerns with the refined concept that meets the goals of the project. As you can see in the staff report, there are 3 staff recommendations to improve the intersection. The first staff recommendation is widening option 11, which includes a southbound right turn lane on Kildare Farm Road, eastbound and westbound dual left turn lanes on Cary Parkway, and eastbound and westbound right turn lanes on Cary Parkway. This option meets all of the goals of the project to reduce delay, improve traffic operations, improve safety, and will better position the town to accommodate future traffic growth, while also addressing concerns with landscaping, road network, driveway access, and pedestrians. The refined design concept also allows sufficient width for a grass median that can be landscaped with ground cover that includes low shrubs that are in accordance with NCDOT planting guidelines. At the March council meeting, there was also a concern expressed about operational impacts of driveways near the intersection of Kildare Farm Road and Cary Parkway. The second staff recommendation includes the installation of flexible delineator posts to restrict left-turning movements at the driveway service access behind Trader Joe's off of High Meadow Road, or High Meadow Drive. High Meadow experiences significant queuing with spillback onto Cary Parkway in the PM peak hours due to vehicles turning left into the driveway. A traffic calming request is underway on High Meadow Drive that may need to be coordinated with the recommendations of the Trader Joe's driveway. The flexible bollard system will not require road widening and could be installed on the existing pavement. At the last council meeting, there was also a concern of pedestrian conflicts with vehicles and the awareness of pedestrians in the crosswalk. The third staff recommendation is the installation of flashing yellow arrows for all proposed exclusive right turn lanes on Cary Parkway and Kildare Farm Road for pedestrian safety. As you can see in the photo, there is a flashing yellow arrow for the right turn lane that will turn red if a pedestrian pushes the crosswalk button. The flashing yellow arrow can be implemented on approaches with exclusive right and left turn lanes that will allow the control of individual turning movements to reduce conflict with pedestrians. It typically gives pedestrians a 5 to 7 second head start when entering the intersection. The flashing yellow arrow also highlights to drivers turning right that there could be a pedestrian in the crosswalk and they need to stop, while also prohibiting left turns at the same time. Using flashing yellow arrows for right turns would be the first time used in Cary. However, it has been used in other locations in the state. In summary, staff recommends widening option 11, the installation of flexible delineator posts on High Meadow Drive to improve traffic operations, and the installation of flashing yellow arrows for proposed exclusive right turn lanes for pedestrian safety. Does council have any questions that I can help answer?
We might in just a minute. I'll start off the discussion and give my personal comments, and I feel we need a bigger view of where we're going. I understand that there's at least a dozen intersections going out west in the future that probably will result in these types of questions and issues. The speakers that spoke tonight, I pretty much agree with them about the aesthetics. So you have the practicality of the intersection that on one hand, and then you have the aesthetics on the other. I think we as a council need a vision. What's the most important? Kind of like our tree ordinance, you know, are the aesthetics the most important thing? Is practicality the most important thing? Okay, they're both important, then how do you prioritize? And what conditions do you prioritize? And those types of things. Personally, I would like to see those questions answered before we dive in and change one of the most important intersections in the town. And that's kind of where I am on this. I really don't want to vote on anything tonight until I know what each of you are thinking about this intersection and other intersections that we're going to run into.
Do you have any graphics? There was an option 14 without me trying to go through the staff report and stuff and find it. Do you have
Sure.
anything? You can pull that back up. I believe that one preserved the width of the median.
Yeah, this is option 14, which is the same as option 11, except it has a extended left turn lane for the eastbound left turn lane on Cary Parkway instead of dual lefts.
The difference to the landscaping and the medians on these.
Oh, okay, yes. Here is the, like a conceptual landscaping plan for the extended left turn lane. The existing trees would be able to stay on this location, and then the trees back here would have to be removed potentially.
Okay. And in option 11, would those trees stay? Or, because I heard that you still get a medium, but you get down to smaller stuff with shrubs and grass.
This is option 11, and the trees in the median would have to be removed. However, there is sufficient width for a grass median, which would support low-growing shrubs and plantings of that nature.
Okay. Where I'm at, I kind of like 14. I hate the flexible delineator posts. I appreciate what they do, but I think they're hideous. And after a day, cars have hit half of them, and they're messed up, and they lean crooked, and they just look terrible. And I do not want to restrict business access into any of these shopping commercial areas. I think we, as one of the speakers alluded to, they are really kind of seeing a revitalization there, a lot of investment there, and I don't want to do anything that's going to hinder that. I think we're seeing a lot of good progress here, and I want to see that keep going. So I don't know that I want to punt on this, and, you know, I mean, we've kind of been working on this one for a long time, but I would share the residents' concerns about aesthetics and landscaping. I don't necessarily want to see 7 lanes either, but 6, it's kind of a compromise, I guess, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay.
In addition, I agree with you about option 14. I like that there's better vegetation with 14, but the thing that I really like about it is that when you have a double left turn, that means that on off-peak hours, when it's not crowded, you still can't make a left on Green. You have to wait. It has to be a protected left than when you have these two, when you have a double left. Versus if you just keep that one long left turn lane, then when it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon and it's not crowded, you can go ahead and make a left-hand turn on Green rather than waiting for a signal. And that makes a big difference. I mean, this is one of the interesting things about this intersection is that it fills up for a small period of time during the day, but the rest of the day, it really is pretty empty. It's not overly crowded. And I mean, I'd be even reluctant to make any changes to it at all because I don't think that at this juncture, it's that bad. But I understand Harold and I talked about the.
I drove it tonight and it backed up 2 blocks on
Yeah,
Cary
I guess on some
Parkway.
days it does, but lots of days it doesn't get that bad. But Harold, I respect what you were saying last night when we were talking about this, is that, we have to consider what's going to happen in the future, and that, it's mounting, the problem is mounting and mounting. But looking at these 2 fixes, I prefer 14 because of the vegetation and because it gives you a single left turn.
Can I interject one thing real quick? The single left turn lane on Cary Parkway, it's currently a protected left turn lane.
Oh, it is already protected left, so you can't turn.
That's correct. There's kind of a crust in the middle of
Oh,
the
I see.
intersection.
Thank you for clarifying that.
But
Okay.
there are flashing left arrows on Kildare Farm Road currently, so I just wanted to make that
Well, I'm
clear.
glad you clarified that. Thank you.
Other comments, questions?
Looks like Jack.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Raising
Jack.
No, I just want to pick up on both comments to my left and right, and that is, I think the challenge is that it's such a mess at rush hour. And then, for example, High Meadow is a mess. You got blocked tonight, one person deciding to go left, and it's backed up to Hampton Road. I mean, it bleeds on out. And I talked to the individual here that was up here, and the challenge is like, I don't know, 4 to 6. And at the same time, I don't like those things that you were talking about, those loopy things, because, like, kids aim for them. There are things that, and, no, I just can't see them. That's, but the point is,
that makes me feel so
we have a problem of getting in and out of there, but it really is a problem at that rush hour. And I don't know how you solve that, but I do think it's a safety issue if we don't do something. And it may not be practical. I'm not a traffic engineer, but just like you have school signs, that say speed limit is this on ours, I'd like to at least see some signage that discourages that left turn movement. I don't really believe it affects the businesses. I didn't really buy the argument that it will affect leases. Look, UPS makes 3 rights rather than making a left. And it's so close to that intersection, and it creates such a traffic jam. I really believe it's a safety issue. I don't know how to fix it, but I think we still need to do something there if we're going to make improvements there. At the same time, I do respect that you're trying to make it that is a office a commercial resident, that's a commercial activity center that's being revitalized, and I don't want to do anything to discourage that, but I think we need something for those 2 or 3 hours. I don't know how you fix it.
Other questions, comments?
Yeah, I'm torn here myself. Between 11 and 14, I'd like to see a nice list of pros and cons between the 2 before I just pull out a number out of the air. I also don't like to see those flexible delineator posts, even though it's fun saying flexible delineator posts. I really don't like them at all. I think safety is more important than appearance generally, and always, and in this intersection too, but appearance is important in this intersection. It is an iconic intersection in Cary, and I think we have to take that into consideration too. So the mayor's first suggestion was that maybe we need to talk more about it and look at some priorities. You can count me in on that. I don't know if I'm ready to make a decision this evening.
Other comments?
I'm not going to play traffic engineer. I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. I'm just having questions about the High Meadow, with the one car waiting to make a left-handed turn, backs everybody up kind of thing.
Usually they turn right off Cary Parkway and take an immediate left. If you just go 50 more feet, take a right, you're into the shopping center.
Yeah, you're in.
Yeah.
So they don't want to wait for that light because it backs up. And so they get around that, they take a right and then try to turn left.
But I guess my question is, could you widen that little section of High Meadow one side or the other to get maybe 2 lanes, so if someone stops to make the left, cars can still get by?
That would be another lane, basically, because it's pretty narrow now.
No, I know it is. But
How many feet is
But I don't have the solution for that either. So.
The reason I don't mind closing it is just what you said, right up to 50 feet up, or I don't know what the yardage is, but just a piece up, as the Southerners say, is the exit that's much safer to make those lefts in and out. And you could easily direct that. It's not going to harm the shopping center to direct that traffic down another couple of yards to get out at a safer intersection. I think the people using that center would find that safer and would like that. I don't think people realize it because that other one is right there, right near the intersection.
Do a lot of delivery trucks
Yes.
and such use the back entrance?
That's
I
why
know.
you have to
Kind
have
of why
that
it's
open,
there.
is because of the
So
delivery.
how does a delivery truck get in there with all these Ballard delineator post thingies?
I think they go down to the next back entrance and go back, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, actually, we have a slide up
Oh,
here showing a tractor-trailer truck making a right turn into the service entrance, and it shows the wheel path of the truck. So we would have to actually widen the pavement a couple of feet here where it's got the yellow to accommodate the tractor-trailer trucks if we were to close that, or to restrict access at that driveway.
But right now, they can enter it coming from the south, make a left into it
Correct.
with not much problem.
Right.
Are you proposing the post rather than like a 2-foot wide median because it's such a narrow road and you don't have the capacity to put it like a little tiny median in there?
That's right. It is a rather narrow road, and let's see. I have another slide. Well, this is showing like widening to the west side. If we were to widen the roadway to put in a median, we'd need about a 4-foot wide median to provide signage and warning signage that the median is there. The bollards you don't have to do anything with the roadway because the bollards serve as that advanced warning that, you cannot turn left here. So that's the reason we would have to do a wider median. But we had three options: widening to the west, widening to the east, and then a symmetrical option somewhere in here. Oh, there we go, a symmetrical option. But these options to widen the road, we do not have sufficient funds in the current project to do that. So staff was supportive of the idea of the bollard system, and we could monitor operations and make sure that this was a solution to the problem, and then request future capital funding for a project to widen in the future.
With any of these changes proposed, where is the pedestrian, where is the way that we can make the pedestrian crossing safer as the citizen came up? Because they're talking about from Hanover Place across High Meadow Drive, that there's a crosswalk, people ignore it, right, then when they go up. Is there any other way to improve that?
There is a conceptual traffic calming plan that has been developed. I don't have that here with me tonight, but I believe there is an island located just over here next to Hanover Place, and it actually provides
refuge.
A little bit of a refuge there. I'm speaking from memory. It's been a little while since I've looked at it, but there is a improvement to the crosswalk in that plan.
And on the Hanover side, there are no sidewalks.
That's correct. There's no sidewalk. There would be a wheelchair ramp put here on this side. However, I don't believe there's any sidewalk on this side, and I'm not sure about the other side. I don't see any.
There's none on the Hanover side all the way to Cary Parkway, if my memory serves me correct. However, on the back side of the shopping center, there is a sidewalk.
Yes,
And
that's
they had safe crossing with the refuge. I think they could get to that sidewalk safer than they do today, but it still would be a little scary for me because, like someone said, I think it was a speaker, people do 60 miles an hour. I don't doubt that at all. I mean, I travel that road several times a day, and they move. So.
Yeah, if we were considering something on this back end, I would, and since we're already there, I would like to see us do some sort of, protection for those citizens, especially if we're going to be doing something on widening. We didn't really talk about the three or four different options for this particular section. We've been only talking about option 11 and 14, but I'd like to see that both of those happen at the same time.
Okay, we're at a decision point, I think. What's council thinking?
Well, you want to take them separately. I'm with the, what did you call it? What is the name of them again? Something flexible delineated bollards.
So you're not going with a particular option, you're going to?
No, I don't know if there's support for that across the board, I've heard.
So you're going to
Make a motion that, well, I don't know that we have, is there anyone else who likes one of these particular motions? I like the wider, what Ms. Robinson said, I'd like to see a wider median that's not the bollards, but still, makes it very uncomfortable for a car to jump it, rather than the bollards. And I think that was the one that requires the widening of the road?
That's correct.
And there were two options there, right? There's the one side, or three, west?
Yes, there were three, a symmetrical and a widening to the west, which is the shopping center side, and then widening to the east, which is towards the neighborhood. And I don't know where that slide went to.
So I'm with Mr. Smith. I don't see, and perhaps it's because I'm not a small business owner, but I don't see that closing off or making it very painful to enter from this, from Cary Parkway into this back entrance, a real hindrance to this commercial development. I mean, if people are going to Trader Joe's, they're going to Trader Joe's.
If you look at what's on your screen, where the town of Cary is at the bottom of the slide is where the entrance is. That's how close it is.
No, I know.
So they can get into that shopping.
They see me there a lot. so I don't.
It's a little bit further down.
But I don't. No, I guess what I'm saying is, I think closing off this entrance and having some sort of median is acceptable, and it's a way to help the traffic.
I guess the question is, can we afford it? Can we afford to widen it, or is that something we?
That's a future thing, is what I heard.
Yes.
What's the cost of widening
it?
Well, it depends on which option you wanted to choose. I think widening to the west was, I think, about $55,000, and then up to, I believe, symmetrical was about $80,000. So there was a difference in cost.
Is there an impact to that business at all if we go to the west? Because obviously there's an impact to the homeowners and the shrubs and everything.
I would go east.
Yeah, I was just
towards the houses.
Not towards the houses. I thought that would.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay.
On your screen, you'll see the cost estimates here for each of those options. And when we had the analysis done of the intersection, we took traffic counts at this driveway, and there were very few lefts turning out of the Trader Joe's driveway onto High Meadow. More people were making a right turn from the driveway. More people were making a left from High Meadow into Trader Joe's in the back entrance. This entrance is mostly a service entrance for the trucks to serve Trader Joe's. So we believe that if we're able to accommodate the trucks by increasing the turning radius, there shouldn't be any operational issues with the driveway.
Except that they're going to continue to drive over the grass and stuff on the other side of the curb, because not every truck's going to be the same size, nor is every truck driver going to have the same skill. It's just like you see in that sharp turn area right in front of the Arts Center, where you come down and go. That whole area right there gets trashed because the trailers drive up over the curb, and you look at that little image that was up there about the truck making that turn. Well, yeah, how many of those truck drivers are going to hit it right every time? For me, I'm kind of almost like, let's go ahead and move forward on the intersection, the Cary Parkway, Kildare Farm Road intersection stuff. and see if there's maybe some better options here. I would be more inclined to see if we can get some widening done and add a lane, and if somebody's sitting there turning left, people can go around. The delineator posts, I can't stand those things.
Yeah, I don't like them either.
So you want to make a motion?
Okay, so why don't I
She
make
was
a
in the
motion, see if it, so I'd like to take these one at a time. I guess I'll make a motion that, I guess it's, what number is it? The
14, I think is what you're looking at, right?
Well, no, I was going to do what I thought was easier, the one
Oh.
behind Trader Joe's. Do that one easier, because I think there's still a lot of comment on the other line item. But no, I'm not for installation. I make a motion that we look at the funding associated with and the installation of a wider median for High Meadow Drive or Road, and with the land being taken to the west, not on the home side.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
So just to investigate it further.
Right, to investigate it.
I'll support that.
Okay, there's a second. So you're asking staff to come back with a study and an analysis. Well, they've done analysis, and they've done cost due. So what are you asking staff to do?
And, well, I'll make a motion that we approve. The problem that I have with making a motion to approve it is the cost associated with it. Do we have this in the budget? Is it something that we can do, or do we have to find a
My understanding, and Ms.
associated?
Dwiggins can correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is the bond money appropriated for this project does not include enough money to do this option.
That's right. We did not scope this as part of the original intersection improvement project, so this would be an extra cost.
So it'd be out of capital reserve.
When it all came on one staff report, I assumed the bond covered all.
So are you amending your motion, or are you still?
I'm withdrawing my motion.
You're withdrawing?
I'd make a motion to direct staff to further investigate options for traffic improvement on High Meadow Drive.
There's a
Oh,
motion.
that would be good. I second that
And
one.
a second. Discussion?
But I just want to ask, what else could they provide to us that we don't have in this?
What would you?
Right now.
You could come back with the possibility for an extra lane. You guys, your motion was, I would have voted against it because it's too specific. You are saying we're only going to take land on the west side. Well, what if we needed a foot on the other side, you know, I mean.
I thought they already did, I made that motion because reading the staff report, it sounded like that was the three solutions that they gave us. You want some other?
I'd like to look holistically at the road.
Right,
okay?
they did 3 analysis of it, and I think Don's asking for more than that. And
He's asking for consideration of maybe an extra lane, take out some land, could be on the west, could be a little on the east, and add an extra lane in there. So just go ahead and study, and I'd recommend that they bring this back to us as we start to contemplate next year's budget, so we can look at it in comparison with other road items that we'll be considering at that time.
I'm not going to put a stipulation on it as far as next year's budget. I'm going to, when they're ready to come back to us, I say they come back to us.
Okay.
You know, and if we feel like we can make a mid-year appropriate or whatever, then we do it. If not, then we wait for the budget discussion. But I prefer to do nothing on High Meadow Drive right now except for study it and see what, you know, a more comprehensive look at it, long-term type solutions might be. But I just throwing the little bollard thingies up, no, and putting a little 2 4-foot wide concrete median, that's ugly. I mean, so much of what we've heard about all these improvements deal with aesthetics.
so, Mr. Wiggins, what I think I'm hearing, and then I'm going to let my colleagues speak, no bollard option. Look, I think I heard an option that they did like the 4-foot wide concrete strip and one that didn't. So that's probably an option to consider. And then other options with lanes and.
Oh, one thing I'd like to point out, adding an extra lane would not particularly help this situation because there isn't a long enough queue length from the intersection to the driveway already, and that's what's backing up cars who are trying to turn left into the intersection. So they're actually queuing back up onto Cary Parkway.
But if, when they turn right on to High Meadow, if that opened up into 2 lanes and cars wanting to go left would stay in the left lane and cars wanting to go through could pass them by on the right. right?
Rather than have a median. I see what you're saying. So
That's
basically a left turn.
potential,
Right.
yeah.
I'm not
We
locking
could look
into
into
median,
it.
I'm not,
So that would be an option to look at.
Okay.
Okay.
There's-
Mr.
Yeah, there's a, I'm going to support it with a lot of reluctance because I think we have a serious safety problem there, and I'd like to see us move on it a little quicker. But in fairness, in talking to the owner of that commercial area, they were involved in the early focus groups, but they were not made aware of the changes that were being brought before us tonight. And that's not fair. At the same time, I encourage them to work with our staff and acknowledge that there is a problem. And they may have some ideas, and I'd like, about moving down, and maybe there's some things that aren't a major burden on them that they can do. I think we're kind of over fixing this. We got a problem getting in there, and I got to believe between the ownership there and us working with them, we ought to be able to figure something out. He's got to figure out a way that he's got peace of mind that it isn't really going to affect his leasing. I don't know how a safety issue, allowing a safety problem to exist, is going to help leasing. And we both agreed that the biggest problem is rush hour at night. So I'd like to work with them, and I'd like them to work. So I'm going to support that we not deal with it now, but I sure hope that you can come back to us in some time frame with various degrees and say, the simple solution, you put the signs up like you have with the schools, no entry, 4 to 6, realizing that, the success of that is probably minimal until people get used to it, but that's where the problem is. And I don't want to elaborate. The point is, I'd just like to see more thought and more discussion. That's where I agree with you, Don. We need that. But I don't want to dismiss the fact that there's not a problem there.
No, I don't think any of us.
Okay, all right. So I just also forgot to mention earlier that the person did call and reminded me that they didn't know about these new changes, and I think if they were involved, there might have been some more give and take on that discussion. Don't know.
Okay. Other options? We have a motion to look at further options on High Meadow Drive. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, what about Cary Parkway, Kildare Farm?
Make a motion to move forward with option 14.
Okay, there's a motion
A second.
and a second. Discussion.
Well,
I definitely,
I guess I want to hear, my inclination is to go with 14, but I guess I want to hear from staff why they felt like the double left, because that's the only difference, right, between 11 and 14?
Yes.
Why did you guys think the double left was superior to the longer single lane?
Well, when we ran the analysis, the single left just extended. It basically does not improve the operations at the intersection at all. It functions as it does now. By doing the dual left turn lanes, it significantly decreases delay. You're able to clear the left turn lanes within one signal cycle, whereas with the extended left turn lane, it would take 2 cycles to clear the left turn lane, 2 signal cycles. The extended left turn lane, it does get cars out of the through lanes, which is a good thing to help with the capacity of the intersection. It just doesn't help at all with the delay situation. So the left turn lanes are just much more efficient than the extended left turn lane. You get more, I guess, bang for your buck with that option.
Okay. What do y'all think? I mean, it's a tough one, because if we're going to put all this money into improving the intersection for capacity, you'd like to have it improve capacity.
and to me, on this particular one, it's about aesthetics.
Mhm.
And that's why I would
That's
love
what
to have a
you're
work session on that, but, and maybe we still can. But I would like to protect that aesthetics, because when you're there,
Mhm.
backed up 2 blocks, you're seeing trees and grass.
Well, yeah, we've always said that if you're going to be stuck in traffic, it might as well look good.
Yeah.
That's what we've always said.
That's right.
Yeah, so.
So I would hate to
The,
see those trees go.
But at the end of the time, again, you know, the issues are 8 a.m., 5 p.m.
Mostly in the evening, yeah.
You know, I just don't want to destroy the aesthetics of the intersection for 2 hours a day.
We do have another intersection in town with a similar median width, which is on Maynard Road at James Jackson Avenue. And the picture in front of you shows a similar type of landscaping that we could do at Cary Parkway and Kildare Farm Road with the low-growing shrubs. And there's also another location at Maynard and Robert V. Godbold Park with similar landscaping.
No offense, but I think the other looks better.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, is this something that we need to send to a work session, or is this something
I
that
thought the
we
clock
just?
is
Are we
ticking
just
on
trying to?
grant money.
Sorry, Don.
Tell us where we are on any time constraints that we have.
This is a bond project. We are trying to push forward as quickly as we can since we know we're trying to deliver a product to our citizens. So if we're able to get a decision tonight, we plan to be able to, pending all of the DOT approvals, be able to go to construction towards the winter of 2015.
In my understanding, if we call for a work session, we're talking about January before the calendar opens up, or we'd have to double up work sessions in a month. And I'm seeing nods from staff. Yes.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we are. If we want to do a work session, we want to have one soon, then we're going to do 2 in a month. If we want to wait, we'll do it in January, and that'll delay it several months. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where we are.
I guess my question is, if we sent this to a work session, are we sending it there because we're hoping that we'll find like a magic solution that gives us a double left turn?
In option
vegetation?
17 or
I actually think we would be better off as a council, like I said earlier, if we prioritize our thoughts. You might have higher priorities on one thing, and I might have higher priorities on another. And if we all express where our priorities are and all have an understanding where we are, I think we'll make easier decisions.
I think 14 is a good balance of that, though.
Yeah, I don't disagree with
moves.
Yeah.
It gives us all the traffic improvements we need and are looking for, except for that double left.
And I don't disagree with you.
And 14, it gives us what staff wanted the first time. The 11 just happens to be a new idea that's come forward that gives us more capacity. You know, which I guess for the long term would be better.
So to me, it's, but back to the aesthetics
Yeah.
versus, you know,
I
what your values are. To me, I think we're making a pretty good compromise on both and saying they're both important.
Yeah, I go with
Well, I think it
Because
also.
we're making all the improvements, but still maintaining the aesthetics. I mean, we've had this discussion at Cary Parkway and House how many times? You know, and we understand at 5 p.m., yeah, it's going to be backed up a while. It's, you know, I don't expect to go anywhere at 5 p.m. and not have traffic.
Well, one of the things that I thought was important, and I went back to look at it, is that we're talking about 5 seconds difference between option 11 and 5 in year 1, I guess. In design year 2020, you're only talking less than 10 seconds difference between the two.
11 and...
Looking at your figure 2
eternity.
for a sec. So, I mean, are we talking about a lot of difference between,
That's an eternity.
I think
5
It-
seconds?
you know, my
It's
When you
actually...
just stopped at 24 lights on the way home, you know, that.
Okay.
It is more than
Five
that. In the PM is the controlling hour of this intersection. So if we were to not make any improvements by the year 2012, or I'm sorry, 2020, we would have an overall intersection delay in the PM of 130 seconds. If we were able to move forward with option 11, we would move that down to 62 seconds of delay per vehicle at the intersection in the PM. So it's...
And option 14?
No, this
During
is,
option
I'm sorry, this is option 11. Option 14 would move the delay down to 71 seconds.
So like 5 seconds?
8 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Difference between the two.
Okay.
Did we
I
make,
just-
I made my answer.
Yeah, just
that was good
making the
information.
decision
Thank
between
you.
it. Are trees worth 8 seconds?
Yeah, trees are worth 8 seconds.
That's what, I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Yes.
so I failed at my
Right?
job. I cannot remember if we made a motion for 14 or not.
Yes.
Yes, we did. Okay,
Motion
thank
for
you.
14.
So we have a motion on the table. I apologize for getting lost in the conversation there. Is there any other comments or discussion on this motion? All in favor, please say. Oh, you had something?
I'm just not thoroughly convinced. It's still, I mean, this last few seconds certainly helped point us toward 14. Maybe that's what we
Did you see the
need.
last 8 seconds?
The 8 seconds?
Yeah, these last 8 seconds pointed us toward the
We've talked for longer than that.
We have indeed. But I just think, I'm still all over the place, and if I had to pick, you held me to pick, I'd pick 14 tonight. But I'm going to stay with the status quo right now for further discussion, I think.
Can I just ask a quick question? Because I think, we could say this is our solution for, let's say, the next 20-some years. But at some point, a future council is going to have to look at this intersection, and maybe they're going to have to go to double left lanes then. And when that happens, if we go with 14 now, and then in the future they convert it to 2 dual lefts, will there be any median left at that point when they convert from 14 to 11? To be able to have what you see here in Maynard, or would there be then nothing left?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was trying to go to that option, went backwards. Yes, if we did the extended left turn lane now and then wanted to come back later to do the dual lefts, we would have the median to widen into here. We would probably just have to do some additional median work where we extend the left turn lane. We may not need it to be as long at that point, so we'd probably have to do some median work on the end of it. But yes,
Do you think there'd be any median left at all along those left turn lanes between the eastbound and the westbound then?
Oh, yes. If we came back in the future with the dual left turn lanes, it would be the same as option 11, where we would have an 8-foot wide.
We'd still get that little grassy median in the future. Okay, then I feel comfortable with this. Thank you.
I can accept it, but I still would like us to go study for future intersections. But I think Don's point is you can study it and come back with your priorities, and you're probably not going to get better than this. I probably agree with that. I don't know what else can be done other than what's projected in 14. That would make me happy. So anyway, we have a motion and a second. Further comments? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Motion carries 5-1. Thank you, Mr. Wiggins.
Was there one other question?
There was one other question.
There is one other, yes. The flashing yellow arrow concept for pedestrians.
And this would be a first in Cary.
That's correct.
And just a first at this intersection, or if we looking to do this are we like going to pilot and test it here, and then if it works, go do other intersections, or?
That's a potential, yes.
Yeah, I happen to like the idea. I can see that this will be something we'll see at other places where there's high pedestrian. Because I see that people sometimes in the cars where they don't expect the pedestrians, they just go ahead and make the right and they don't look. But if they're just flashing yellow, I think there could be a lot of added value.
I agree.
Is there going to be any signage to help educate us as we go with this?
Yes, we could do some signage on the span wire of yield to pedestrians or no turn on right with pedestrians, something like that.
Okay.
So there can be some signage accommodated with the flashing arrow.
Okay.
Yeah, you said they weren't used in Cary, but they are used elsewhere. Is there somewhere near here that?
Yes, in Chapel Hill on 15501 near, I think it's.
Don's vote up until.
I'm sorry.
I've been on that. I've seen that.
That was actually the photo of,
Right.
I think it's Barbie Chapel Road. It's at that intersection.
Okay.
It does confuse you the first time you're.
Just like the left ones did. I'll make a motion that we move forward with the installation of the flashing yellows for the proposed exclusive right lanes at Cary Parkway and Kildare Farm.
There's a motion?
I second it.
And a second. Discussion.
I would just ask that we study, monitor it, see how it works. Is it meeting our expectations? And if not, before we throw them all over town.
Of course.
And in addition to signage, we have our regular pedestrian countdown with the.
Yes, yes. It would be a combination.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Wiggins.
Thank you, Council.
was the most half-hearted ayes.
We now move to item
Try better next
6.2, the shale gas comments and update. Ms. Barrett will present this item, and council may take action. Ms. Barrett.
Good evening, council. The staff report before you seeks council feedback and approval for 2 documents. The first, Attachment A, is a deadline-driven document that outlines staff's recommended comments on a set of proposed rules to regulate the hydraulic fracturing or shale gas development activity in North Carolina. These comments are due by September 30th. The second document, Attachment B, is not deadline-driven. It summarizes staff's approach to the 35 recommendations in the Environmental Advisory Board's Shale Gas Development Report, which was received by council on May 8th of this year. Attachment A reflects a multi-departmental effort to comment on the first statewide rules on hydraulic fracturing. The team included members from Transportation and Facilities, Water Resources, Utilities, Planning, Legal, and the Fire and Police Departments. Since the most effective method to comment on proposed rules is to directly address the proposed language and regulatory structure, staff focused comments in Attachment A on the proposed rule language. In some cases, concerns raised by the Environmental Advisory Board that were not expressly addressed in the rule can be addressed with local ordinances. For example, the concern about noise at a shale gas development site. In other cases, concerns raised by the Environmental Advisory Board were not part of this rulemaking, but whose authority lies clearly with the state, like the concern about air quality. Staff expects that the Department of Environment and Natural Resources has determined that their existing rules and planning processes can address any air impacts of the shale gas activity. Staff will stay abreast of any proposed air quality rule changes and comment as appropriate. In a few cases, staff recommends general comments on important overall concepts, like encouraging the Mining and Energy Commission to use an abundance of caution when making decisions that may impact the drinking water source for our community and others who receive their water from Jordan Lake. Attachment B summarizes where the town has the ability to influence or mitigate any negative effects of the shale gas development activity in Cary. Most of the suggested actions fall into 2 categories. The first is how the town provides feedback at the state level on legislation during the legislative process and during the rulemaking process. The second is how the town reviews and makes any needed changes in our land development ordinances in order to comply with state law and rule. Staff recommends that council approve Attachment A and authorize staff to submit these comments electronically to the NC Department of Environment and Natural Resources, Division of Energy, Mineral and Land Resources, and their North Carolina Mining and Energy Commission, commonly referred to as the MEC. Staff hopes to receive council's feedback in order to meet the September 30th deadline. Staff also recommends the approval and acceptance of the general approach outlined in Attachment B. Individual recommendations will be brought back to council for action. Thank you.
Thank you. Open it up to council members for questions, comments, motion.
Well, if I may, thank you, Ms. Barrett. That was excellent presentation. Again, not to be redundant, we have A and B here. They're related because they both deal with shale gas, but otherwise they're 2 distinct things. And A was put together, as Emily mentioned, by a number of staff folks. And I think the aim here is to protect our water source and to protect the health and well-being of our citizens. And I think the staff has done an excellent job in their commenting on option A, and that's the time-sensitive one. That's the one, if we are going to be commenting, and the MEC has asked for our comments, if we're going to reply, now's the time to do it. And I think A really does a great job. B, we remember we received this report a few months ago from our shale gas subcommittee, and this is referred to staff, and what staff's asking us here is to approve their approach to handling it. We're not approving yay or nay any particular item in there, but it's their approach. And to me, their approach says, and this is in my own words, tell me if I'm wrong, but it's saying that we're not going to take these recommendations and put them in a drawer and throw away the key. We're going to be taking these and using these as the shale gas initiative moves forward, and whether we like it or not, it will be moving forward. And we'll need to comment on, with our legislative agenda, and once the rules are in place and things start happening in a few months, we may need to do something. These recommendations will be there as a tool to use. Most of them, the approach is, we're not going to do anything unless we need them, and I hope we never need them. So that's kind of my take on this, that we're asking for an approach, to approve an approach here in B.
I feel like you're speaking to me, Ed.
Well, I was looking at
Make a motion to approve attachment A.
There's a motion. Second. And the second. Discussion.
I'd like to just make a comment, because I think there's a lot of people watching this who may think, even though you had an excellent description of this, that this council is for or against fracking as it stands. And that's really not what's before us at all. Now, personally, I am vehemently opposed to fracking in this area, especially as close as it is to our only drinking water source. And also considering that here where we have the Triassic Basin, anything, whether it's earthquakes from pumping the water back into the ground, what's going to happen to the wastewater, any of those activities could severely impact our quality and our way of life. So personally, I am not really thrilled that the general legislature is allowing this. Be that as it may, what we have before us is a way to potentially mitigate any of this and protect the citizens and put plans in place that protect our taxpayer dollars, our quality of life and our drinking water. So I think the approach, Ms. Barrett, that you and the EAB and the shale gas folks did is phenomenal, because you took it, what I see personally, and I'll only speak for myself, as a really bad situation and said, how can we deal with this? So I think there's a lot of people who watch this and say, oh, they're voting for fracking, and that's not the case at all.
That's very well said. We're asked to comment in A, which is what we're dealing with now. We're asked to comment specifically on those rules, and that's what we're doing here. If it were me, the rules would say, thou shalt not frack. But that's not me. We have rules that are going to be in place, and we need to get them to say whatever they can say to best protect our citizens.
Well, that's pretty much what we're doing. I mean, they are going to be creating a regulatory framework for shale gas exploitation. It's happening. Not to get into the do I like it, do I not like it. I think it can be done in a safe and responsible manner. And I think that what attachment A does is gives the state recommendations to further help ensure that this occurs in a safe and responsible manner. I think there's a lot of emotion attached to this topic. I think there's a lot of politics attached to this topic. Quite frankly, I think it's a religion for some people. But it's out of our hands, and I think, again, it does the best to ensure that Cary's concerns and hopes that we can retain as much municipal authority on this as possible is protected. So I'm okay with A.
Okay. You have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Barrett.
Thank you, council.
Well, we have
We have B. That's right.
Hold on.
I'll make a motion to approve staff's recommended approach to the recommendations found within the EAB's shale gas development report found in attachment B.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion.
Yeah, just question for clarification. Obviously, these are just guidelines and stuff for staff if and when some of these issues may arise, but should any of those issues arise and staff feel that something needs to be done, that staff will be coming back to council for an approval before doing.
Absolutely, especially as you can see in item 1, which is the first row. We do outline a process that you're probably quite familiar with at this point. And so the advocacy principles for the 2015 General Assembly long session will be the next time that you'll probably be hearing about shale gas development conceptually and how do we as a town want to talk about it.
Cool.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimous. Thank you.
Now, thank you, council.
We now move to items 6.3 and 6.4, the annexation and rezoning request for the Barbie tract. Staff is going to give us a report. We're going to hear the Planning and Zoning Board's recommendation, and we may take action this evening. Ms. Grant.
Thank you. For your consideration and decision this evening is annexation petition 14A09 and the rezoning request 14 REZ 15, property located at Davis Drive and Hogan's Valley Way on approximately 13.2 acres. Subject property is shown here, highlighted in yellow. As you may recall, this is part of a larger tract, the Barbie tract. Only a portion of the property is proposed for the annexation and rezoning. The annexation shows you the area again highlighted in red, and then the portion here would not be part of the proposed annexation because it's not part of a future development plan. Here's an aerial view of the subject property that shows the Hogan's Valley property right here, which is approximately a half acre, and then the larger tract. The land use plan designation is low-density residential, and there's also a parks and open space designation along Hogan's Valley Road, shown in green. The existing zoning is residential 40, and that small sliver of land adjacent to Hogan's Valley Way was part of the Preston PDD. And just to remind you, it did not have a specific land use designation. It wasn't part of a tract. It wasn't part of the open space. It was just residual space along Hogan's Valley Way. The proposed zoning is residential 12, conditional use. And the applicant has proposed a condition that you heard at Town Council, not to exceed 2 dwelling units per acre. And then there was one protest petition, concerns about traffic on Davis Drive. Then at the Planning and Zoning Board, the applicant came back and presented 2 additional zoning conditions, that there be a minimum lot size of 13,000 square feet and that the average lot size not be less than 15,000 square feet. The Planning and Zoning Board recommended the request for approval by a vote of 7-1, and I'll defer to the board chair to enlighten you on the discussion.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. As you've heard, we voted 7-1 to recommend approval of this project. I'm going to focus on the 1, and then I'll focus on the 7. The one concern was there is a historic property on, or a historic structure on this property, and one of our members felt strongly that we maybe should be doing more to protect, to preserve, it looked as if it was going to be very difficult to move the building, and he would have loved to have seen some sort of accommodation. That was the one negative. On the positive, we really liked the reduced density, the additional conditions the applicant offered. We thought it fit very well within the neighborhood, the existing neighborhood, and we thought because it's a fairly small project that the traffic impact would be minimal. But we did, of course, make the comment, as we always do, that this is just one more straw on the traffic loading Camel's back, and that we wish we had a better way of addressing the cumulative impacts of traffic.
Thank you, Mr. Swanstrom. Questions for Ms. Swanstrom or Ms. Grannon?
I have no questions. I'll make a motion.
Comments, motions?
Yeah. Let me find the number real fast here. All right. Let's see here. I make a motion that we approve 14 REZ 15.
We have to do the annexation.
Oh, we'll do the annexation. Excuse me. I'll make a motion that we annex first 14A09.
Second.
There's a motion, second. Discussion. Mr. Yara, you want to talk about the historic structure?
Yeah, I guess we need to talk about whether we're going to do the
Right.
rezone before we approve an annexation. You know, it's one of those backwards things.
Kind of want to get a feel.
Sure.
Because they don't really want to annex if they can't rezone, so.
Well, it's probably no surprise that I'll be voting no to the rezoning, since the historic preservation component of our comprehensive plan is not being addressed in the rezoning. Not that it hasn't been addressed in the discussions all along the way on this one, but it's not addressed in the rezoning itself. And that is, of course, to preserve, protect, and maintain Cary's historic properties. There's not a lot we can do when the owner of the property doesn't want to save the house, admittedly, you know, from a practical standpoint, except, I guess, vote no. But I had a wonderful discussion, I just want to mention, with one of the owners, with Ms. Powell, about the house, about the land, about the area. It was a delightful visit. She was full of wonderful, rich stories of the way things were years ago. I won't say how many years ago. And subsequently, she gave a wonderful interview with the Friends of the Page Walker, a formal oral interview, which we're extremely grateful for. And I want to thank her for that. And I also want to respect her reasons for not wanting to save the house. She gave me a good long story about it, and I understand it, and I respect it. But preserve, protect, and maintain, well, it's not happening. Finally, just one of the applicants, you know, we're starting our Historic Preservation Commission. We've just accepted the applications, and we're going to start the interview phase. But one of the applications, and I'm going to paraphrase here, one of the folks said that historic preservation is not just saving old buildings, but it's preserving the identity of our community. That's an interesting thought. It's not the buildings that, you know, I care about themselves. I'm not sure we've done a good job over the many years of preserving these things. I think we've done a lot better lately. The Cary Arts Center, the Cary Theater, wonderful examples of doing that. But there's not much left, and it's just sad to see one more be gone. So that's my reasons and my ramblings, and give you an indication of how I would feel about the rezoning.
Thank you, Mr. Yura. Other comments? Okay. We have a motion on the table to approve the annexation of the Barbie tract. That's 14A09. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Motion carries 5-1. Is there a motion for the rezoning?
Yeah, there is. Yes, I'd make a motion that we approve 14 REZ 15.
There's a motion
A second.
and the second. Discussion. I just want to say, Mr. Yura, I feel for you, and I have to, personally, I'm weighing it. And I really think this is the best use of the land to match what's around it, and I fear for the future if we don't rezone this to the appropriate best use that I think it could possibly be. And that was my reasoning, or it's going to be my reasoning for supporting it. However, I do really think it's sad that we're losing another historic structure. So, other comments?
But just one last comment. We've been talking a lot about school capacity at this table and in the weight of additional children on West Cary. And this is another, I think, up to 20 kids. I mean, I know it's, what is it, death by 1,000 cuts, someone said about traffic. I think we do the same thing even when we look at these small communities. We think, oh, it's just 20 here and it's just 20 there. But it is something that we all consider. And I know for people who are watching this thinking, oh, you're putting more kids. This is a perfect use. This is in the middle of a community. It's an infill. But it is a strain on the system, and I think we need to consider that.
Other comments? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
No. Motion carries 5-1. Thank you, Ms. Graham. We need a comprehensive plan consistency statement for the rezoning.
I'll make a motion that we approve the comprehensive plan consistency statement for rezoning 14 REZ 15.
There's a motion. Is there a second? I'll second.
Woohoo!
Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Motion carries 5-1. That takes us to item 6.6, Flint property at Indian Wells rezoning request. Staff's going to give its report. So we're going to hear again from our Planning and Zoning Board, and we may take action. Ms. Granick.
Thank you. This is a request for rezoning of approximately 4.74 acres, an individual parcel located at 7041 Indian Wells Road, highlighted here in yellow on the south side of Indian Wells Road. It is improved with an existing single-family residence. The land use plan designation is medium-density residential. The existing zoning is residential 40. And the proposed zoning is residential 8, conditional use. The property is under contract by the same developer that rezoned the property adjacent to it that is also zoned residential 8, conditional use. And it's proposed that this parcel be added to that development plan. The applicant has proposed to limit the density to 3 dwelling units per acre and limit the use to residential detached. There were no protest petitions. There was concern expressed at the initial town council meeting and the planning and zoning board meeting about the applicant not being required to conduct a traffic analysis. The applicant did explain that the ultimate lot yield for the development fell below the 100 peak hour trip threshold and then was therefore not required. Once again, I'd like to call upon the planning and zoning board chair to describe their recommendation for approval.
Once again, we voted 7-1 to recommend approval. The one dissenting vote was really concerned about cumulative traffic impact, and I'm glad we left this slide up because if we had looked at this entire development as it's being cobbled together, a TIA a traffic impact analysis would have been required. But by rezoning piece by piece by piece, we stayed underneath the threshold, and so no TIA was done. Would this piece of this development have been a huge impact? No. Would its cumulative, the cumulative impact of all of these pieces that are being cobbled together be an impact on an area that already is severely stressed? Yes, and that was the concern. On the other hand, we thought it was a fairly good fit with the existing development. We appreciated the fact that it was at the lower end of our density expectation. We appreciated that it is part of a larger project that has already got consistent zoning on it.
Thank you, Ms. Swanstrom. Open it up to council members for questions or comments.
I think,
Motions.
well, I think you're adding on to what Lori had just said in the last one. You know, it makes it so tough because you look at one, you're like, well, you know, it kind of fits in with everything else, but we're adding more school kids and we have no release valve for that in the near future. How do we address this? I mean, this, you know, it looks consistent with what everything that's around it. It'll probably be done in a harmonious way, you know, sympathetic with the development to its east and north, but we're adding more kids, so how do we address this?
Yeah, your land use plan says put medium density. They're offering medium density at the lowest density possible. And that's what they're offering.
Yeah.
I'm optimistic that the community will continue to put pressure on the school system to provide school seats. When you hear discussions about possibilities that they'll be developing schools inside Raleigh or inside downtown to bring development or people back there, it makes you wonder what the heck's going on. You know, it's gotten to where I can't take them seriously. I'm sorry. So school seats are the school system's responsibility. The town of Cary does one heck of a job in communicating plan approval, growth trends, everything to the school system. We've tried to partner with them in every way known possible to further help them bring school seats to Cary. I hope the community continues to communicate with them.
And I agree with you, Mrs. Robinson, philosophically, completely. But in this one, very much like the one we had at our last meeting, it's gone through the process so far. I'm not about to pull the rug out from under them at this point. And again, we're talking, I guess, death by 1,000 cuts maybe, but we're talking just 14 homes here, I believe. So I'm going to support this, but I hear you philosophically in the future. I think there's something we ought to do.
Yes, it's just it's just a difficult position to be in.
Any other comments or a motion?
Make a motion to approve 14 REZ 16.
There's a
second.
motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed,
Sorry.
motion carries 5-1.
Make a follow-up motion to approve the comprehensive plan consistency statement for 14 REZ 16.
There's a
Second.
motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries 5-1. Thank you, Ms. Grannon. We now move to our next item, 6.8. It's the designation of a permanent name for Bartley Park. And so while we're mulling ideas for names, Mr. Kuhn will present this item, and then council will take action.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Staff is seeking direction this evening on a permanent name for the park, currently known as Bartley Park, and also a road name for it. The staff report provides background on the acquisition of the property and the planning and design effort that has occurred since acquisition. So at this time, staff seeks direction from council.
Okay, and I thank you. I'd like to start this off. You'll recall earlier this year that we adopted a facilities naming policy, but this project was not included in that action. And with the park's groundbreaking set for September 28th, this is our opportunity to set the park's official name. In addition, if we can be helpful to the staff, if we could agree on a name for the road, as it was mentioned, going into the park. It's under my understanding that street name can be same as the park or can be different. I would like to suggest or get us off the discussion, start the discussion by saying that we're all privileged to serve with the longest serving council member ever, Jack Smith. And I know it's kind of awkward to name something after a sitting council member, but I certainly think this one would be well-deserved. It's near where he spent most of his life. I think it's most of your life. I don't know. You're kind of old.
Oh.
But I really think the appropriate name, in my opinion, would be Jack Smith Park. At the same time, there's some history at that location, and the Bartley Farm was there for many, many years. And council might consider naming the road Bartley Farm Road or Bartley Road or something. That's where I'd like to start off our discussion, and I'll open it up to the rest.
Is that a motion?
I'd prefer not to, being the chair of this group.
I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we name the park Jack Smith Park.
Okay, motion and a second. You don't want to include the road?
Let's do the road as the second one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second discussion.
Well,
I'll just say real fast, a long, long time ago, when we acquired this parkland originally, and we're talking about it, council members were talking about naming this park for Jack, because by then we thought certainly Jack would not be on the council. But he has held in there, and I just still think it's the appropriate thing to do, even though Jack is still, sitting at the council table. I'm pleased to have been able to serve with him, and I think that it is a fitting and right honor to give you for all your years of service to our town, and we really appreciate everything that you've done for the people of Cary.
Okay. Other comments?
I want to echo what Mrs. Robinson just said. I mean, Jack's our longest-serving council member in history. He's historic.
Yes.
Oh, this is about historic preservation?
It is indeed. He could be added to our historic inventory, I think, if we wanted to preserve, protect, and maintain him. But the truth is, Jack has preserved, protected, and maintained all of us over the years as our mentor. And many of us who've gone before us who are no longer here, and he's going to be doing it to a few others that are going to come after us, I bet you. So, I think it's a wonderful thing and a privilege to serve with Jack. I do want to publicly acknowledge the Bartley family. I think I'm the only person here on the council who knew Mr. Bartley Sr. AJ, and everybody called him AJ. The AJ stood for Andrew Jackson, by the way. AJ was a brilliant man who cared about preserving the past, but not for the reason of just saving an old building or an old farm. He cared about it for the reason that future generations can learn from it. He was concerned about young people and the future. By wanting his land and his farm preserved, he had, I think, generations still unborn in mind when he came up with this idea. So I want to acknowledge that, and I think, although we'll do the road separately, I totally agree with you, Harold, that we should have the Bartley name in the road itself.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to name Jack Smith Park. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. All right, what about the road?
Make a motion to name the road Bartley Farm Road.
There's a motion.
Second.
And a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. That
Thank
was
you,
fun. I
Council.
like easy motions.
Thank all of you. And
Look forward
I'll
to
be-
the,
I guess I'm preserved now, this story.
And protected.
I will say that, there will be a time where some child asks his or her parent why the park is named Jack Smith, and
Well, let's
And-
hope not. Oh, I'm sorry.
even those who have known Jack can say, because he dedicated his life to the town of Cary. I mean, to put this many hours in, I think a lot of people who aren't familiar with what a council does, may not understand the sacrifices that people make when they serve in local government. And I'm glad. I think this is the right thing to do.
it's so far a quarter of a century in counting.
I guess my grandkids, the last, what do we do about the other 300 Jack Smiths? No, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
All right, we're moving on to item 6.9, the petition for the removal of traffic calming pavement markings on Castelia Drive. And first of all, we need a motion to remove this from the table.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we've removed it from the table. Ms. Cove's going to provide an update on this item, and then we may take action. Ms. Cove.
Good evening, and thank you. As you indicated, this item had been tabled from your last meeting, so I'm going to quickly go over what we talked about at the last meeting and then update you on the petition results. So again, as background, since 2004, really through 2007, staff had worked with the neighborhood on extensive traffic calming in that neighborhood, in the Weatherstone community. We do have an upcoming town street resurfacing project on the block, and as part of that, a resident had asked us to consider removing the double yellow center lines as well as the 27 marked parking spaces. It's my understanding that our contractor is ready to move forward as early as next week with that resurfacing. Just a picture for you to remind you again, this is looking southbound on Castelia with the parking spots on the right-hand side of the picture in the double yellow center line, and looking in the other direction. And the parking spots are used for a variety of reasons, but as you heard the speaker earlier, they are also useful for providing parking so people can access St. Michael's Church and school. What we talked about 2 weeks ago was, as per the town's traffic calming policy, staff drafted a petition that was shown in your staff report. The original petition was returned with just 14 signatures, and then there was a citizens drafted petition that had 98 signatures. The total signatures at that time was only a 53% return ratio in support of that petition. Map showing the rather large influence area and those original petitions shown in green with the citizens supporting that. Just a reminder of your traffic calming policy. It does focus on trying to have neighborhood support for anything that we do in this area. And typically it shows the desire for 70% support for a petition. There were 2 reportable crashes in the time frame from 2007 to the present, neither of which appeared to be as a result of the traffic calming in place that we're talking about tonight. Again, the street design of Castelia is a collector street with a 35 feet back of curb to back of curb section with an 8-foot wide striped parking area and 22 feet left for the pavement. And again, at your last meeting, you provided additional time for the residents to gain more signatures on the petition, which they did. They submitted that petition to us yesterday by noon, so we would have time to validate it and verify the signatures. And the result is that there was an additional 153 signatures on the new town petition, as well as the 14 from the original town petition, which resulted in a support for the removal of the pavement markings for the parking, as well as the double yellow center line, was over 82%. Here's showing the updated map, showing all the green with the citizen responses in support of those petitions. So as a result, staff recommends from that recent petition that we not replace the double yellow center line and the striped parking spots after the resurfacing project. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Does council have questions, comments, motion?
I'll make a motion that we move forward with staff's recommendation and the Castilia or Weatherstone request to do the repaving without the center line.
Second.
There's a motion, a second. Discussion?
Without the center lines and parking spots, or just without the center lines?
That was, both of those
that
items
was
were in the
recommendation.
petition, correct.
All right. I don't have that much heartburn over the center lines not being replaced. I kind of would like to keep the parking spots. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it one way or the other. Obviously, the residents have spoken. I guess my biggest issue, just the whole process of all this. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Let me ask a quick question. If streets that have a double yellow line, people are not supposed to be parking on a street with a double yellow line, is that correct?
You're not supposed to cross the double yellow line. So if the street's wide enough to allow parking, where you don't have to cross the double yellow line.
I see. Okay. So if we take away the markings for the parking spots, people could still park along there if they
That's
wanted to
correct.
in the morning, right?
And people used to park along there before the double yellow line. It was just, from my understanding, a haphazard parking situation, and so the marked spots helped people figure out where to park.
I like the on-street parking. I mean, to me, that's a great deterrent for speeding. It slows cars down. But
Well, on my way here today, I've driven by there several times. I drove by, and the pavement markings that we've already talked about are inconsistent. There's double yellow lines, and then it stops, and then there's some more double yellow lines. But what I thought was interesting as I was driving here is there were a lot of cars parked on the side of the road where there weren't any parking spots labeled. And it does naturally make you slow down. You see a car on the road, you slow down. So, I don't really see the need. No, wherever I saw the cars, they didn't have parking spots. They were just on the side of the road. It seems like the parking spaces were just where that entrance is to St. Michael's.
That's correct.
Other comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-1.
Thank
Thank you, Ms. Cove. Now it's time for a closed session. I'd entertain a motion.
Pursuant to GS 143-318, 11A, 1, and 3, I move that we hold a closed session to consult with attorneys employed by and or retained by the town in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorneys and the town, and to prevent the disclosure of information that is made privileged or confidential by GS 143-318, 10E.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are in closed session. Thank you.
Are you around tomorrow? Call you.
We'll reconvene our council meeting. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
My brother always had that.
This has been a production of Cary TV. Visit the Town of Cary's website at townofcary.org.